If I had to break it down and determine which game developer is perhaps the biggest juggernaut of all time, Rockstar Games is definitely up there on that list, followed by Naughty Dog, Bethesda, and Insomniac Studios. And after all, almost every game they publish has always turned into gold, from Bully, LA Noire, and the Red Dead Redemption series. But their most successful video game to this date is none other than the Grand Theft Auto series, with Grand Theft Auto 5 being the second best-selling game of all time. But we're not talking about GTA 5, today's the day that we're going to wind the clock down a bit and discuss the rise of the series to how it actually became popular. As much as I would like to talk about GTA 1 and 2, but I have decided to move past them for now, or more realistically, I haven't got those games yet, and talk about not one, not two, but three Grand Theft Auto games, the ones in particular being the PS2 trilogy. GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. 3 games in one video. Talking about each of them one by one, give out my opinion about them, and give each of them a score from 1 to 10. Because I don't want to make this video long, I will be brief on some of the topics so I don't go overboard and repeat the same sentence over and over. I know I'm bound to offend at least a few die-hard fans of this series, but it is just all my thoughts about each of them as I go along. And if some of you may question about why I'm talking positive or negative about a topic, it's just because my personal feelings made me feel that way. So with that said, let's begin with Grand Theft Auto 3. This is my first time actually playing this game, and for what I've experienced, I can go on and add that Grand Theft Auto 3 was such an unbearable game, and one of the most annoying Grand Theft Auto games I've ever played. See? I told you I would offend some of you. A bank heist is going down in Liberty City, and it looks like everything is going according to plan until Claude's girlfriend, Catalina, shoots him and leaves Claude to take the fall and get arrested. While getting transferred to prison, the Colombian cartel ambushes the police transports to abduct another prisoner while Claude and your new friend Guru make their escape. As the story moves forward, Claude ends up working for a few mafias and groups, and you work your way closer to catching Catalina and taking your revenge. That's pretty much the base of the story, as you go around and try to find the ex-girlfriend who shot Claude. I'm not really a huge fan of the revenge storyline, as they can be predictable, but what makes it really enjoyable going through the story is the characters. It's obvious the inspiration for the characters here came from The Sopranos, and you do see bits of it applied to GTA 3. From Tony, Oscar, Joey, and Salvatore, the characters do help bring this game to life. And while I think in my opinion the acting isn't really superb in some areas, it's cool to see new people to talk to you and check out their personality. However, there is one character that has zero personality whatsoever, and that will be Claude himself. He gets the Crash Bandicoot treatment as the silent protagonist of the entire game. I would have liked to have seen Claude's character trait really shine by allowing him to speak amongst other characters in Grand Theft Auto 3, but I suppose it is what it is. Now, as far as the gameplay is concerned, I'll mention right now with this game, plus the other two I'll talk about later on, the following cons I'll be discussing have already been improved on in later GTA titles. And in terms of expressing my opinion, despite this game standing to the test of time, there is zero special treatment. If I see something or notice anything I don't like, I will be calling out on it. But then again, you probably should know this by now. The majority of any GTA game is mission-based. You jump into a sandbox world of what the game presents, and you go out and complete the missions till the game is won. These missions could include shooting down a plane, or surviving a wave of enemies to name a few. In Grand Theft Auto 3, you explore around Liberty City, which is pretty much New York. Yeah, it looks grey and somewhat dull, but I actually like the look of it. Liberty City is labelled as the worst place in America after all, filled with busy traffic, construction work, and mob gangs, and the overall graphics and design help complement that statement. You do start in a small area at first, but as you progress, you'll unlock other places to visit and explore Liberty City even more. Because of the limitation on what the PS2 could offer back then, every time you enter a new city, there will be a loading screen, which is fine. It doesn't take forever to load, but I could imagine it would be annoying at times. What sucks though is that there is no maps in the options menu, which makes navigating from A to B a chore. Sure, you have the compass in the corner telling you where the next objective is located, but it's very small and you don't really see everything all in one. So, if you're playing it for the first time, like myself, do expect some trial and error. The gameplay side for Claude is very awkward to control. First off, the way he runs is like he's got something up his butt, so he has to waddle around. I don't even want to know what's up in his crack. He also can't jump on ledges, which is weird because he can jump higher than an average person, and as for the shooting side, it's almost downright infuriating. I think from my experience, it's due to the camera. You cannot move your camera freely while walking unless you remain still, which in that case, then you can move your camera. So, if you want to shoot an enemy, you have to make sure the camera is positioned just right so you can see what you're aiming at, otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. It also doesn't help that you can't strafe as well, and that makes the shooting side of things even more difficult. But hey, at least he can swim, right? Oh yeah, I completely forgot, Claude can't swim. The controls for moving your car are alright, not the tightest controls when it comes to driving, but I found it pretty manageable. You can drive regular cars, trucks, boats, and even planes to name a few. They all drive differently, but they're all sensitive to crashes, which is unrealistic from my point of view. Take one hit to a wall and your car is already smoking and on the verge of flames. While driving, you can choose a radio station to listen to, and I find some of the music to be enjoyable. It's not my favourite list of licensed music in Grand Theft Auto game, but it is still pretty nice to listen to. While driving, you can run over people and break the law on multiple occasions, and that brings us to the wanted stars. When the cop sees you doing something bad, a star will highlight. When that happens, you have to avoid the cops and make your escape. The more stars you get, the more ruthless and aggressive the cops will be. And they can even send in helicopters and some special agent task force into the fray. And when you do end up dying or getting busted, you get taken to a hospital or a police station, and as a result, they'll take some of your money away and confiscate all your weapons, so you will have to start from the ground up again. It's always annoying when that happens, but then again, it's always just a price to pay when you're breaking the law. The missions to me are a hit and miss. Some of them can be great, like Bomb the Base, where you use a sniper to shoot the bad guys and protect your buddy, but then you have some other missions which involves a time limit. Those are always annoying, especially without a map to follow. But then there's this one mission I absolutely hated, and that one is taking out the laundry. It sounds simple, grab a car and smash the other cars until they blow up. Easy peasy. But what doesn't help is the cars you have to destroy are built like goddamn tanks. I had to switch cars until I lost count because it looked like my cars were on fire quicker than my enemy cars. I tried so many vehicles to bump into and even went out of my car to shoot the cars as well, but that didn't help due to the clunky shooting mechanics. This mission alone took me a whopping 13 minutes to complete, and for 13 minutes, it really felt like 13 hours. Maybe it's just me because there might be a strategic way to beat it way more quickly and I didn't know about it, but it was still an unpleasant time to go through. So that was Grand Theft Auto 3, and if you couldn't tell by now, this game is clearly outdated. But I suppose I knew what I was expecting going into this game for the first time in my life. I can appreciate just how revolutionary this game is, and while I can understand why this game deserves to be on top of a pillar, but from my experience, I just cannot get myself hooked in Grand Theft Auto 3. The shooting really needed more work on, and even though I enjoyed some of the set pieces of Liberty City and some of the cool missions to check out, I just can't bring myself to come back to this game for a second playthrough. So with that said, I'll be giving Grand Theft Auto 3 a score of 6 out of 10. Am I going to get hate for this? Probably, but at the end of the day, everyone has their unpopular opinions, and this is mine. I am not the biggest fan of Grand Theft Auto 3. So, with one game down, let's move over to the next game called Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Unlike GTA 3, I actually did play Vice City back in the day with a few mates, so I did felt a bit of nostalgia going back to Vice City in what feels like a long time ago. The main character for GTA Vice City is Tommy Vercetti. He is released from prison after serving a 15-year sentence of committing murder. His boss, Sonny, wants to expand the drug operations over to a place called Vice City, so he sends the recent released Tommy and Ken over there for the drug deal. But it all goes south when unknown assailants ambush the deal and Tommy and Ken end up escaping. After telling the news to Sonny, Sonny orders Tommy to recover the drugs and the money or else there will be hell to pay. So over the course of the game, you complete missions and try to uncover the missing drugs and money, but Tommy has other plans, as he not only has to get the items back, but also succeeding on his own goals and establishing himself as the kingpin of Vice City. I absolutely enjoyed the plot of this game, as once again, the characters really do make the story better. In fact, the characters here felt a lot better this time around. You'll be able to interact with Lance, Kent, Ricardo, and Avery to name a few. What's also a major plus is that thank God the main character has a voice actor. Because of this, Tommy comes off more natural and more relatable compared to Claude being a mute throughout Grand Theft Auto 3. With Tommy, you can also change his appearance and clothes he wears. If anything, this was just a small teaser to the character customization in future installments, which we will get to. The presentation here is more of the same, but the graphics look more brighter and colourful, and that's due to the city itself. Despite being released in 2002, Vice City looks gorgeous with its beaches and cool looking cars. It only has 2 islands rather than 3 back in Liberty City, but that's not a bad thing by any means. At the end of the day, if it looks good, then I won't be complaining about it. So, what about the gameplay side of things? Well, for starters, Tommy controls exactly like Claude and not in a good way. He still runs weird, he can't jump on ledges, and he can't swim, which still sucks. The shooting side is basically similar to Grand Theft Auto 3. The camera does not help out when you're trying to shoot a bad guy, so again, you have to place it just right in order to get the perfect shot. They did add a few new auto-aimed weapons to help aim your targets better, so that's something I guess. I always use the auto-aimed weapons as it makes the gameplay feel more smoother, even though not much changes have been added, but if there's one thing I would have liked to see improvement on is the shooting. Being able to strafe instead of standing around and being exposed to gunfire. The vehicles control better, although every now and then I try to slow my vehicle whenever it's a car or a motorbike and it always loses control. It doesn't happen all the time, but it gets tiresome when seeing it. In Vice City, Rockstar now added a map in the options menu, which is a thumbs up for me. Anytime I feel lost or don't know my way around the city, I can always pause the game to check out what my next objective is. The missions are fun as always, and I enjoyed them even more than Grand Theft Auto 3. One of the cooler additions Rockstar did was having characters interact with each other as you drive your way to your location. Vice City offers some of the best radio music here. So many cool songs to jam out to, from I Wanna Rock, to Out of Touch, to Running with the Night, to name a few. You will most likely be grooving along with the music as you casually drive along the beaches and get in trouble with the cops while you're at it. But one of the fun things you can do in Vice City is working your way to be on top of the class and claim your right as the kingpin of Vice City. And one of those examples is buying a property and starting to build a business. You can purchase a boatyard, ice cream factory, and a movie studio as well, plus more. You can complete small tasks within those properties and can even collect cash as time goes on. And that was Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and man, what an impressive improvement over the previous. Sure, it does have the same shooting style and not much has changed gameplay wise, but what you get is a fun story of seeing a character going from a nobody to a somebody, and along with a great supporting cast and some nice missions as well, you cannot complain about that. So with that said, I'll be giving Grand Theft Auto Vice City a score of 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed my time with this one, and it makes me somewhat baffled onto why I never put much more time into it growing up. Well, I suppose I'm making it up for lost time. So with 2 games down and 1 to go, let's wrap it all up in a pretty bow with Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Oh boy, now we're getting into the childhood and teenhood classic. I must have spent so many hours playing San Andreas, and I didn't care back then if I finished the game. I absolutely enjoyed it for its world design and amazing characters. After 5 years away from home, CJ heads back because of his mother's unfortunate passing. On his way back home in a taxi, he's pulled over by a few cops. They harass CJ and remind him that they are the ones who run this place. Later on, CJ reunites with his old pals, Ryder, Big Smoke, Kendall, and his brother Sweet. They're all part of a gang called Grove Street, but over time, since CJ left a while back, they've lost a lot of territory and influence from their rival, the Ballers. So CJ vows to stay and bring back the popularity Grove Street once had, while trying to balance everything out between himself and the corrupt officers. While I did enjoy Vice City's story a bit more, I still love it here. It's pretty in-depth compared to the previous titles, and I love seeing CJ starting from the bottom and working his way to getting respect back from his buddies. You definitely see a lot of character progression, not only from CJ, but many others surrounding him. There's many cool characters to witness, like the ones mentioned earlier who represented Grove Street, along with OG Logue, Caesar, and Officer Tenpenny. He is up there as my favourite villain in the Grand Theft Auto series. He's such a total dick to CJ, as well as ruthless, heartless, and doesn't have a care in the world as long as he gets what he wants. He also gets his own theme song whenever he appears, just to show how much of an asshole he is. There's so many great lines, along with some great quotes as well. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas begs to be experienced from start to finish, as you can explore not 1, but 3 cities, with each one having their own style and look. One could even argue that the map itself might be too large for its own good, but I like it. It's crazy to think that for a PlayStation 2 game, Rockstar really went all out by testing the limits of the hardware, and they succeeded. And while the graphics and the face models aren't the best compared to some PS2 games like Jak and Daxter the Precursor Legacy for example, it's really hard to complain due to the amount of content. So what's the gameplay here like? Even though the base gameplay is still the same, complete missions to earn money and continue the story, but the controls itself has been revamped. For the shooting side, you can now crouch, strafe, and features a lock-on to enemies no matter what weapon you have, which is a massive thumbs up for me. It just makes the shooting gameplay more smoother and fun at the same time without feeling like a chore. I will say that the vehicles do control and feel the same as Vice City, but there is a blur effect if you drive too fast, and regardless if you like it or not, that's up to you. I personally don't mind it. Also, cars in San Andreas can flip pretty easily than usual, so be mindful when that happens. What I really love about this game is the introduction to the RPG side of things. The amount of customizing CJ is almost endless. You can change his clothes, give him a haircut, and change his appearance via the stats. The stats feature some categories you can either fill the bar or you don't have to. You can earn respect from your gang, increase your driving skills, your shooting skills, your sex appeal, and can make CJ look like a bodybuilder when spending time at the gym. Yes, you can work out in San Andreas. But you can optionally move to the opposite direction and turn regular CJ into Fat CJ. Not gonna lie, this is probably the best part about this game. The running animation changes and you see unique dialogue to make his personality fit. Not only that you can finally swim, but you can even dive underwater, which is handy. Like I said, you can change CJ's clothes, but it does take a while to find the attire you want. The only way to view which clothes you want is if CJ is wearing it, which will take 5 seconds to load up. But if you don't like it, then CJ goes back into the dressing room, meaning more time will be wasted. It's not all that terrible, but just tedious. The radio station offers some pretty good music. It has all the genres you want, so there's really not much to complain here. I always listen to Cult of Personality though. I'll always be a CM Punk guy. Throughout the entire trilogy and the series, if you want extra cash, you can always partake in sub-missions like being a taxi driver, delivering the injured in an ambulance, doing some police work to catch the criminals, to name a few. And as for the missions, again, I love them. So many cool ones to go through, like drive-through, just business, and home invasion. But if there is one thing I have to complain about San Andreas is the difficulty spike in the missions. Usually in a video game, the more further you dive into the story, the more tougher it'll be. But in here, there are a few times the game can become pretty challenging early on, like wrong side of the track for example. Trying to complete this mission and other missions later on will depend on the AI and the NPC's controls. Will the gunshots actually connect, or will the traffic be terrible, and so on. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but do be mindful that you may have to repeat a number of missions. And that was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. You can tell that Rockstar really learned over time and added new features and gameplay mechanics to make the gameplay overall enjoyable. And when you bring in the engaging story and fun but good written characters, you have a recipe for perhaps one of the best GTA games out there. And I definitely have to agree. While it's not perfect by any means, it's definitely up there as my favorite game in the trilogy. So with that said, I'll be giving Grand Theft Auto San Andreas a score of 9 out of 10. Outside of the difficulty spike, it's an amazing video game, and one that should definitely be added to your game collection. In conclusion, it was pretty cool to play the PlayStation 2 GTA Trilogy. All three have their own unique differences that makes them stand out compared to each other. Grand Theft Auto 3 being a depressing and harsh city, Vice City being a tropical paradise, while San Andreas really expanding everything into one, creating a massive world. Even though I have said a few negative comments on a few topics, I do recommend getting all three of them, even GTA 3. And after all, they do hold some history within the video gaming industry. But anyways, that's going to wrap up this video. I thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.